Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Kia ora, Chewy. It's not Chewy. It's Nala. Chewy's on his way home from work. He will be here momentarily with us. So thank you for sticking with us at the start. I'm sure at any moment you'll hear Chewy go boop and pop up, and then we'll bring him into the show. Big show tonight. We're going to have a look this evening at David Seymour and Marama Davidson, kind of jousting on Ryan Bridges' show this morning, talking about Air New Zealand, talking about Luxon misspeaking, and about Iran as well and what's going on there. Also going to have a listen to some of the things that Winston Peters has officially said today as the Foreign Affairs Minister about Iran as well. Something else has popped up in the afternoon since putting the show out, and that is, has there been some interference by government ministers in TVNZ broadcasting? It's really interesting because it's about the crime numbers, the drop in crime numbers. And a couple of the ministers were very, very unhappy last week that TVNZ chose to highlight that there are now more gang members than police officers rather than highlight the alleged drop in crime. And then I think the next night there was a story about the drop in crime numbers. So there's some conversations going around at the moment. There's also some accusations being made at TVNZ that they are showing political bias, that they should have run the other story first anyway. And then if you tie into all of that, the revelation from last night about the crime numbers, it makes for a bit of a sticky and awkward conversation. So we'll be having a look at that as we go through the night as well. Can I say a huge thanks to all of our lovely patrons that help us do what we are doing here in the show. If you are a patron that, I'm going to have to try and remember the levels, aren't I? And you are I think it's super patron, producer, senior producer, executive producer. I think I've got that right. Then you are invited to a meetup on Saturday morning. The invite has already been sent through Patreon, so it should be in your inbox right now. Little heads up for people who want to catch up for an online meetup on Saturday morning. It is a little bit earlier than normal. We normally do 11. I'm doing it at 10. And obviously it'll be a lot smaller than normal because there are fewer patrons able to connect with this meetup. So if you're one of those kind of top 4 levels, the 4 levels that contribute the most to our work financially, then you'll have an invite in your inbox already. And we look forward to seeing a couple of you, some of you, one of you on Saturday morning. And if you'd like to be a patron, if you'd like to be a part of what we do, then all you need to do is head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. The other thing, of course, is the website's up and running with all our bits and bobs there. It's also a good place to find as a bit of a hub of what we do. You can see on the top page here a bunch of the BHN clips, but when we have a locked out episode or a frontline episode or a collective episode, they also show up in this. But let's say you want to find out about the collective, you can go up to the shows, and you can go down to the collective. Then the collective also has its own page with a bit about the hosts and the episodes and some clips and stuff as well. So it's all on bhn.nz with, of course, the shop in there as well. Now, some of you will have probably received your Ditch the Pricks merchandise so far. I would like to see some of them on your person. You could send us a photo to mail@bhn.nz, or you could put it on a social media and tag us. I want to see how proudly you're wearing them. The first people in the country to get them, which of course these t-shirts and hoodies will only probably be for sale up until about July this year, maybe August, because come November, they kind of expire from a little thing called the election. All right, whānau, I think that's about us to kickstart the show off. Let's get rid of Nala. Boop. And it's a bit of a strange, well, it's not a strange conversation. The topic of the conversation is taking a bit of a detour, because I saw something in the chat say that Chewy flagged this whole conversation. Oh, I might have just heard something. I might have just... how's that, eh?
I've been rushing, man. I'm all Oh,
You're Russian?
gross. I'm damp.
You're Russian?
And sweaty.
Officially?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Look, dude, time couldn't be more perfect. I won't talk to you now because I'm not that keen on you. Because Scotty's already waiting for us, and I've already done the kind of build up and that kind of stuff. So let's have a chat to Reverend Scottie Reeve, who is an Anglican priest and the host of the 21 Elephants podcast and a social entrepreneur from Wellington. Welcome to the show. Friend of the show. We have spoken to him before. It's Scottie Reeve. Scotty, good evening, sir. Welcome to the show.
Kia ora, nice to be back.
Kia ora, Scotty.
Last time we spoke to you, you were being a cheeky little blighter around Julian Bachelor. That was the last time we had you on to help place you for the people who are watching. Did anything ever come from that? Like after we left you and you did your bit, was there any other repercussions or celebrations or events that followed on from that?
Oh, Julian Bachelor did get in touch with my employers and a board that I'm on. And
what? Can I just say this? Yeah. Sorry. Let me say one thing. What a little bitch. Sorry, keep going.
I'm not allowed to laugh at that.
Sure.
He sent an email to a board I'm on asking if I got my ordination from a cereal box.
Yeah, and did you? Like, was it a Cracker Jack? It was
yes, I did actually.
Oh, cool. Very good. Before you go tonight, and I'm earmarking this in part so I don't forget it. We want to tell people about the 21 Elephants podcast because it's really interesting. And there's some really interesting stuff, especially I'm assuming the last season has finished in December and there's new stuff coming up. But the last season in particular is really interesting. So we want to make sure we highlight that for people if they want to find out more about you in that 21 Elephants podcast. Now, I was about to say this is a bit of a strange conversation because it's really coming from Chewy, and Chewy wasn't here. Chewy is now here. Chewy, do you want to sort of introduce us, give us a bit of a précis as to what you saw, what you found, and then let's get into it.
So I hinted at this a little bit last night, and it was a big show last night, and we didn't quite have time. But there was also some hesitation on my behalf because the only source I could find on this was a single Substack. And now there's some more major outlets kind of running with it. And the guts of the story is in the build up to this attack on Iran, several military units, US military units in the Middle East were given pep talks, situation updates by more senior leaders. And there were some pretty strong concerns about the tone and the context of those situation briefings.
Shall I read out what has been reportedly said, so then people know what's been said and keep going? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what today has been, and there's been people in the chat, Chewy, saying you led the world in this coverage, just so you know, because you were there well before HuffPost. So gold star for you. So this is HuffPost today. A military commander tells troops bombing Iran is, quote, part of God's divine plan, end quote. One commander had a, quote, big grin, end quote, on his face while saying Donald Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran. This is what's been reported. For some US military commanders, the emerging war in Iran is part of a biblical plan to bring about the end of the world as we know it. According to complaints filed by over 100 service members, and that was something you were pointing at yesterday, Chewy, was the complaints that were going in from the American soldiers. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation has received a litany of complaints about religious ideology seeping into military orders since the US and Israel began bombing Iran, independent journalist John Larson first reported. Mikey Weinstein, unfortunate surname in this day and age, founder and president of MRFF, a non-profit group established 21 years ago that focus on ensuring constitutional procedures for service members, spoke with HuffPost by phone Tuesday morning and illuminated some details of the complaints, which have come from more than 36 military units situated in at least 30 different military installations. We started getting calls in the wee hours of Saturday morning from people saying their commanders were just jubilant about this and trying to tell people, quote, don't worry, it's all part of God's plan, end quote. Weinstein said the, quote, metric promised, end quote, in the Bible book of Revelation is horrifying and should worry everybody. They are promised a 200-mile-long river that is 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing but the blood that their weaponized version of Jesus will spill at the Battle of Armageddon, Weinstein said. Well, that's a lot of blood. That wasn't my opinion. That was one of the quotes. Part of what makes the account so disturbing, Weinstein said, is that service members aren't able to push back when they're given orders that blur the line regarding the separation of church and state. This is all about time, place, and manner, he said. If you're being proselytized to by your superior, you can't say, get out of my face, under the military criminal code of justice. Insubordination is considered a felony. And I think that's pretty much all I left it at to start with. The article goes on talking about superiors asking servicemen to come around to do Bible studies at their houses. A bunch of the people that have made the complaints identify themselves as Christians. So there you go, Chewy. That's a bit of a summary of the whole story as we know it right now. Back to you, sir.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously some really concerning stuff there, that there seems to be some higher-ups in the US military command. I'd include Pete Hegseth in this. He is very much on this wavelength, and it may be coming directly from him, that this is some pre-Armageddon shuffling of the board, that this is going to bring back Jesus. And I think if there's people that high up in the US military that believe that they're doing the work of God, that overrules pretty much any rules of engagement, any common modern understanding of how wars are waged, how you treat the enemy combatants, civilians or prisoners. It's pretty worrying.
And so Scotty, I today spent some time calling around some people who are church people to get someone who is the expert in the room today. Congratulations, the moniker is yours. To talk to us about your perspective from a church person within the church as to this exterior version of what they think the faith is. And more importantly, as Chewy said, if you're fighting with God's authority, then anything you do is okay, because it's God telling us to do this. And I do, like my last little quip here, I do kind of find it amusing that these are the guys who refer to the Muslims as the religious fundamentalists. That's always an interesting bit on the side there though as well. So Scotty, there's a lot there, but we'd love to get your take on it. I know you've had to read that article and get a perspective from within the church that maybe can counter or talk to or speak to what we're hearing from the American, from some within the American military.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think first up, it's just we need to acknowledge that it's pretty classic for the fascist playbook, isn't it, to appropriate religion. So, Hitler had his own version of the Lord's Prayer. They had their own version of baptism into the Reich for young kids, so this stuff is not new. And I mean, I saw this happening. I was giving a workshop in January on this where I showed a clip that of Pete Hegseth reading the Lord's Prayer while it shows military planes and tanks and guns raining fire on people. He put out another one with Matthew 5 from the Beatitudes, where it has Jesus saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers," and superimposed that on similar kinds of images. So they really are in good company of fascist movements to appropriate religion in this way. I think the immediate thing that kind of comes to mind for me, which is not new to the religious right in the US, is the use of Revelation, which for those who are unfamiliar is the last book of the Bible. It was a vision that the Apostle John has while he's imprisoned by the Roman Empire on the island of Patmos. But it's full of all sorts of crazy things. Yes, it has rivers of blood, but it also has a dragon. It has a giant harlot giving birth to a child. It has all sorts of weird things which make kind of the Lord of the Rings look pretty like or Game of Thrones look pretty tame. And the point of apocalyptic literature is that apocalyptic literature was always written by oppressed people in code, so that they could talk about the environment that they were living in ways that wouldn't be discovered by the empire. So Revelation wasn't the only example of apocalyptic literature in the world at that time, and Christianity actually didn't have a monopoly on apocalyptic literature. So I think what gets really dangerous is when literature which is meant for the oppressed and is written in code gets weaponized by the oppressor and read literally as something we are meant to enact. And so I think that it's interesting, their choice of that, because this is in the pattern of 20 or 30 years of American Southern evangelicalism to appropriate the book of Revelation and assume that we're always in the story, we're always the oppressed Christians, we never Rome. But in reality, when we kind of look at what the US has become, it's Rome. You only need to look around the architecture of Washington, D.C. to see it's Rome. So this is kind of the interesting thing, I think, as we look at it.
Well, I think you only also have to look at the literal skin of Pete Hegseth, telling a very interesting story there. We see the cross of Jerusalem. We see a phrase that has been borrowed by the religious white supremacist community, for lack of a better word, the Deus Vult. Big crosses, guns with flags, just absolute banana stuff. And this is the head of their military.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I guess to talk from a scripture point of view, one of the kind of key motifs of the Christian scriptures, when you look in the book of Isaiah, which is kind of one of the books which has sort of the prophecies of the Messiah coming, of Jesus coming, is it sort of sets up this desire for liberation from this captive people. And over a couple of chapters, sort of chapter 50, 51, it has all these motifs that he's going to kind of come as a warrior on a white horse, and he's going to decimate the heathen hordes who are oppressing them. And it goes on and on like this. And then it kind of arrives at chapter 53, and then it says, that the Messiah was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering, familiar with pain. People hid their faces from him. He was despised and we held him in low esteem. So they're kind of waiting on the warrior Messiah, but what they actually get is a baby in a manger, which is a totally different picture. So they get the peaceful Messiah. And I think the key distinction here, to use some kind of theological language, is whether you believe that the world is made right by redemptive violence or by redemptive suffering. And the way of Jesus would say that we do not exert suffering on other people to remake the world, but that Christ on the cross absorbs suffering into himself and transforms that. And so you're in kind of no orthodox version of Christianity. And even people who would espouse like a just war theory, I don't think would go as far as to say that Jesus relishes in violence or in marching through rivers of blood.
I grew up Catholic, people know that, and I dig on my sort of religious conversations and ideas and stuff. And one of the things I've always been reminded of, and Scottie, you can speak to this for me, educate me, is that sort of people are supposed to emulate Jesus. There's that old, is it the 70s, the WWJD? What would Jesus do? That thing that was around for a long time, or the 90s or something. And I was always taught as a kid and stuff that there was times where legally this Jesus character was allowed to strike back, push back, was allowed to, like the classic example is everyone has heard the story about the stoning of the woman, and he that is without sin cast the first stone. This part of that story is those men were allowed to stone the woman in that law, like it was the correct thing to do. So they were entitled to commit violence. And anytime that there seemed to be a message from the guy who, when I was growing up, they called the Prince of Peace, of you are entitled to hurt someone physically, you are entitled to commit violence, he went, nah. And in my head, I can't really get around the idea of this, I don't know if it's Christo-fascist, Christo-nationalist, fascist, whatever it is, basically going, the bigger the bazooka I've got, the more like Jesus I am. Because Jesus to me was this traveling hippie who, you know, hung out with his 12 best mates and was sort of the one who looked after the widows and orphans and was there for the least. And these guys are literally they're the most powerful men in the world trying to co-opt this message of this beggar trying to help other beggars find bread. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and at the central moment of, and the very central thing that Jesus does, which Christians would say is the ultimate revelation of what God is like, is to die on a cross, you know? And what is the taunt of his enemies at that moment is says, if you're really God, send down hordes of angels to deliver you, like essentially show your power and your might. And he refuses to do that because the way that he conquers violence is by submitting to it, not by repeating with violence. And some theologians have talked around this as that all of history has been stuck in a tit for tat of violence. You know, I strike you, you strike me, and that the powerful thing that Christ does on the cross is, you know, he says, it is finished, and he absorbs violence into himself, and by doing that puts a full stop on our religion of violence and transforms it into something new. So you really are trying to make Jesus stretch into some funny shapes in that Christo-fascist stuff. I mean, I think some of the key sort of division you see around this is, you know, about 300 AD, you know, after 300 years old after Jesus, that you have the rise of the Emperor Constantine, you know, and he has this vision, he says, where he's thinking about subduing his enemies, and he says he has a vision of a cross, and hears the words, by this you shall conquer, and then he sort of goes and dominates all his enemies. Jesus does conquer by the cross, but he conquers by submitting to it, not by putting other people on it. But I think ever since then, we've had this challenge of, like, much like Constantine, empires wanting to repurpose that cross for their own ends.
Chewy, this is a conversation that I love having and I'm heavily involved in. Is there anything that you really want to ask Scottie while we've got him about this whole sort of conversation? What's the burning question that you've got, if any?
Oh, how do you untangle something like white supremacy and nationalism when it's tangled up and weaponized in the faith that you believe in?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think a lot of you know, I wrestle with what my faith has meant in the context of colonization in Aotearoa. You know, I'm an Anglican priest, so I'm my whakapapa. They brokered the treaty and broke it. And so, you know, there is that history. I guess what it comes to is, for me, is that the purity of who Christ is not diminished for me by how badly people embody or treat that. So I think you could agree with anything that if something is true, it's true regardless of how we respond to it. And so as a Christian, it's tough for me to watch other people appropriate what I believe so horribly and use that as an excuse for death and racism, misogyny, homophobia. But I sort of have to come back to a place of, like, do I ultimately believe that what Christ did on the cross is true, and that it continues to be true even if people bastardize and misappropriate it? And I do believe it is. But I mean, this is why we call it faith, right? Because it requires a leap for all of us at some point.
And equally, Scottie, before we say goodbye to you, is there anything you want to leave us with, whether it's about the topic that we've talked about or anything in general based around these themes of, I guess, peace and peacefulness, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. We've been, I in my day-to-day, I'm a parish priest in the neighbourhood of Brooklyn and Wellington, and we talk a bit at the moment about the ministry of silliness. We started a neighbourhood choir, and the other week we were singing sea shanties, And it's so dumb and so silly, and it feels very inappropriate for the moment that we're in. But I think like that ministry of laughter, of silliness, of things that have no utility, of the things that bring us hope is really important for people right now. That it's like as we engage with all the pain of what has happened with the genocide in Gaza, of what is happening in Iran, of what is happening in Ukraine, it's important that we keep our hope alive, because we don't actually make the world better by falling into despair and hopelessness. And so I guess my encouragement is to people at the moment, like where are you going to find your hope? Where are you going to find laughter, silliness, and something to get you out of bed at the moment? Because the world is in a dark place, but we really need people to be countercultural, people of hope right now. And my I guess appeal as someone of the Christian faith is that I believe there's deep hope in the message and person of Jesus.
Hey, Scotty, thanks for joining us tonight, mate. Why don't you tell us a bit about 21 Elephants? Is it coming back this year?
Oh, mate, so I do this with a mate of mine, Spanky Moore.
Spanky.
And some of you probably know him, but we are super busy. We both have kids and complex lives. So what's there is there for the moment. But that last season, we decided to sit down with people who were either dying or had come close to dying, and to ask them basically what was most important to them, what they realized kind of at the end of it all, what they would do less of, what they would do more of. And that's a great little season. So I'd encourage some of you to go and have a listen. I think you'll find it very powerful and impacting.
It's called Before I Go, with a bunch of guests there as well. One with Joy Cowley. Excellent. So that's the 21 Elephants podcast. Scottie Reeve, Spanky Moore, and Rose Morris. Hey, Scotty, it's always a pleasure, mate. Love having you on. You've got a home anytime you want to come and share your thoughts here. We'll thank you for tonight, and we'll move on. Wish you all the best. Yeah? A big hairy home. Just grow out the beard a bit more. It's not about beards. It's a different reason. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you again soon, eh?
See you, mate.
All right. Thanks, Scotty.
Cheers, Scotty. Pleasure.
Well, there you go, Chewy. You threw it out there as a topic. You got any reflections?
Look, I think people in America should really, really worry about this. Look, they hold on to their Constitution and their founding fathers really, really tightly. It's part of the foundation myth of America.
When it suits.
And those guys knew that this was going to be a problem. They baked into their system, the system that they created, the separation of church and state, for this very reason. And when the military is the sword of the state, it shouldn't be turbocharged by religious fundamentalism as well. And it's the potential for that to go into a really, really dark place.
Yeah. The thing I said at the start as well, though, like these are the guys who look at these people who they call religious fundamentalists, like Muslim, and as the bad guys, whilst they're being religious fundamentalists themselves. You know, it's just they can't see it. I guess that's what a cult is, though. You don't see it for yourself. Because were you saying it last night? No, they're your bad guys. They're your religious fundamentalists. So it makes sense. This religion fits in with our culture. So the other one, that's a weird culture.
There's been jokes about the US, having Al-Qaeda, and I think there's a play on words with the Taliban there as well for the southern US states. And look, the percentage of Americans that have identify with some form of Christian faith is much, much higher than it is here. The almost overt showings of Christian faith are much more acceptable in America than they are, say, somewhere like here. But certainly even down to their military, they have chaplains, often non-denominational chaplains.
But the problem is that story that we just read talked about the people that these guys can go to and show their concern about, and they said the problem with the chaplains is a lot of them are evangelical People, and they would actually, so even within the system of here's your support group, here's the chaplain for this division, the chaplain might be more like, no, this is a God thing that we're going to blow up these Muslims,
And like there's even an acknowledgement of this, the dangers of this. It's a very brief one, but it's in a little independent film that you may have heard of, Pat, called Saving Private Ryan. But there's a wee quote in there that basically goes, well, if God's on our side, who's on theirs?
Yeah.
And if both sides believe that, it justifies all kinds of stuff. If God's on our side, then everything's permissible.
Yeah. Yep.
And when you're talking about the most heavily armed country on the planet by an order of magnitude,
Yep.
that's concerning. And when they're in the heart of the Middle East, where some of the Christian faith believe that it's all going to kick off, Jesus can't come back unless the Jews, what do they have to hold? Part of Jerusalem or something like that. And that happened in Trump's first term, and it was mentioned at that point that evangelicals were really happy about that, because that's one of the tick boxes, almost for the end times. It's crazy. And everybody seems to forget that there was a conversation about what the Heritage Foundation wants, and they're a Christian fundamentalist group. And Trump's just been working his way down their wish list.
Let's have a look at some of the chats. Gold says 235 days to register, ditch the pricks in 248 days. Little advert there, little self-paid for advert. Rubio's claim says, Pete, Iran is led by an apocalyptic regime, is a bit rich, given what the US military has been saying to its troops. Yeah.
100%.
Andrew Goldsmith is our JD Vance moment. I didn't think we were fact-checking. They need to lie. NACT are full MAGA, and we need to mobilize it to stop them. Overred Rover, self-fulfilled prophecy is not prophecy fulfilled. Interesting. Appreciate that. And here's one you have stars from She's Sassy. I recommend the book American Idolatry, How Christian Nationalism Betrays the Gospel and Threatens the Church. And Laura says, Big Hairy Church. Maybe we should do that. Remember John Oliver did that thing where he registered as a charity so people could donate to him?
I'm sure there are tax benefits, Pat.
I'm sure there are. Alrighty. You don't know this yet, I don't think, Chewie, because I think you missed the start of the show, but we'll do it towards the end, I think. There is some accusations that ministers have been influencing footage and stories being shown on TVNZ.
See this.
Oh, okay. All right. So that you know about it. Good. We'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's get to our favourite couple. I'm talking about, obviously, Ryan and David Seymour. It's our favourite couple. And have a listen to what they were chatting about this morning on his show, Ryan Bridges' show. They started off with conversations around Air New Zealand, and I don't know what it is. I actually don't want to be just a prick to Ryan all the time, but he does not sound... there's a juxtaposition here. He's wearing the jacket and the shirt, which portrays newsreader, but the way he's speaking it would fit better stylistically, not necessarily content, with something like what we're doing. It just, this is a strange interview that he kind of sounds like he's not really interested. He's not really with it. What's going on? He's a bit bored. No, don't you? Isn't you?
That is our wheelhouse. So
not really interesting, but bored.
Stop stealing that's our whole thing. That's our vibe.
All right, here we go. Air New Zealand.
David, did you see that story out yesterday? We had an analyst saying actually the losses for the year, and we kind of were, this was forecast when we got the result for the half year, but $125 million potentially before tax for the whole year lends weight to your argument, doesn't it, to flick it off?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that argument, and to be fair, some of the point they made is that they're facing challenges such as rising fuel prices that are affecting airlines around the world. But I make the point, you look across the ditch, Qantas is doing much better. And I've just argued throughout this that Air New Zealand really needs to do one thing: take off and land safely and on time. They've tried.
But the problem is, and no one, and there's not an extra criticism of Ryan because no one's asked him this. If Air New Zealand was run as a business, purely as a business, Auckland, maybe Tauranga, but Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, that'd be the only place a business would be flying to, because probably 80-90% of their sales come to there. Why would they go anywhere else? This is the problem that these guys need to understand. You see, did you notice, by the way, Marama's fallen asleep listening to David Seymour? Pick up on that.
She's trying to be zen so she doesn't throw an elbow at him.
This is the thing that everyone needs to keep pushing back on them with. It's like, if someone's put Hamilton, and they wouldn't do Hamilton because Hamilton's only an hour from south of Auckland. Why would they do another airport there? That's what I'm saying. It's like, it would be Auckland, maybe Hamilton, maybe Tauranga, but probably not Palmy. For the number of people that go, probably not New Plymouth, probably not Nelson, certainly not the West Coast. That's how you do a business. You minimize your overheads and you maximize your profits. And they wouldn't do it. And this is the pushback that we need to be hearing from any reporter with this. Companies are closing right now. Companies are shutting down and leaving New Zealand. If this was fully privatized, what do we do, Mr. Seymour, if it fails and then there's no airlines in New Zealand? Because that's a very real possibility. If they're losing money now, and we're having to basically, pay them out or get them out of the hole, when they lose money as a business, they shut down. Then what? They just don't get it, or they choose not to get it.
I also hate this workshop talking point that he's got, that an airline should do nothing but take off and land on time. And it's like, that's an idiot's oversimplification of what an airline does, and completely disregards everything else. So there shouldn't be they shouldn't do safety. They shouldn't do customer service on the plane. They shouldn't represent New Zealand.
It does almost come back to that comment that not the same seriousness of it, but we'd accept anything. Like, as long as they take off and land on time, anything else is fine. Well, it's not the case. There are other things within business to think about. All right, let's keep going, because he's about to drop some more pearls of wisdom. I'll go back 5 seconds and go again. Can I go back 5 seconds? Oh, that'll do.
And land safely and on time. They've tried to do many things. I see even this week they've now signed up to a green hydrogen project. They have a report out on modern slavery. They're trying to generate biofuels and experiment with electric planes. And the message that I've delivered, if anyone is listening to it, is just stick to your knitting and do the things that New Zealanders expect, because as taxpayers, we lose money every year. Every few years we seem to have to bail it out. We actually want them to perform.
But if we have to bail it out, it's losing money. What's the private business 100% model going to do when it starts losing money? It's going to go away. It's going to disappear. That's the problem. This is a service. This is public transport for the length of the country.
Marama, you might actually agree with David. Why are we owning such a gas-guzzling, climate-killing beast like a plane?
I acknowledge that it is a strategic national asset, and we can include it in national assets that actually are for the public interest of New Zealanders. But right now, in this volatile market and time, is not the time to be short-term thinking. Privatising our public and national assets has never benefited ordinary people in New Zealand, but especially right now where we're reliant on a really shifty global world trade that we have no control over. I'm worried that some short-term thinking, short-term benefits and gains will come into that discussion.
So, I mean, this can also be put back on the straight on the feet of John Key, because John Key's muddied the waters by the 51% share. I mean, if it was still fully owned, like, I know it's not exact, but basically the UK fits into the North Island, yeah? The UK has 60, 70 million people. So they're a population base much smaller, so they have flights and stuff going everywhere. They're able to manage it. We're a much
And
more...
they're right next door to Europe.
Yeah, we're
This is
much
why you
more
can
sparse.
Get a 1 pound flight to Spain if you book out far enough. You know, the comparison is not there. We're an island nation. Why would we want to get rid of our airline? But can I just acknowledge, absolutely typical of the Greens, to come out with a radical, airy theory, works in a perfect world but not in reality statement. Like this is what David Seymour doesn't want to happen. He looks like the crazy one.
Yeah.
And Marama Davis is just being real.
Yeah. Yep. All right. They then move into this conversation about the Luxon misspeaking commentary from yesterday, where David Seymour just, why would you look at it? Why would you bother? It's not a big deal.
Into that discussion.
Hey, David, what do you make of Luxon's presser the other day, or 2 days ago now? I think he said he misspoke. Just a bad day at the office, or was it a bit cringe, or what?
Well, look, I haven't seen the press conference. I've heard different people's opinions on it. All I'd say is that he said something that he didn't want to say. He said, look, I misspoke, I pulled it back. I think what is worrying for a lot of people is these are quite serious times, and a lot of people in the press gallery and the media have decided to make a circus out of someone saying something that they later said, no, I shouldn't have said that, came back. I mean, New Zealand...
Well, when they later said it, that was 24 hours later, not understanding that in the previous 24 hours, could have made a statement at any stage. There's another misspeak from Luxon. Do you know what he did, Chewy? He went into the House and corrected it immediately. Didn't do that for the misspeak. We'll talk about the other misspeak in just a couple of minutes.
Just say things every day. They say, oh, that wasn't quite right, sorry, move on. I think if we're going to solve real problems in this country, we probably need a higher level of debate than the fixation we've seen from the press gallery.
Good God. Good grief. Someone talking about a higher level of debate. They're both falling asleep now because of David Seymour's words. Good grief.
I think that actually it doesn't matter because no one really cares. Like, Marama, does it actually matter what New Zealand thinks about the legality or otherwise of a war that's being fought in the Middle East?
Do you see what I mean by it? Just a stupid, it's like,
It depends.
what do you think?
It depends, Ryan.
Do we care?
Do you have a moral compass? Do you
are
have
you
empathy?
Are you interested in international law? Does it matter at all to you? Does ethics matter to you? Does the just war, does the ethics of war matter? No, yeah. No, do we really
Simple,
care?
dumb and callous is the way to go.
Really care?
So I'll firstly acknowledge that even as professional communicators, both David and I know that we don't always get every single word correct. So that is ordinary, absolutely. But Ryan, this is more about him not knowing where he stands and not having the moral courage and the leadership to just declare, as Prime Minister should, whether a war is illegal or not. And he has declared that for other wars. So we need to be showing consistency and principled leadership and be able to call out what we think is happening instead of just kowtowing to what the US says we should be doing, because that's in their interests, not in ours. So
radical stuff, Chewy. These bloody radical greenies.
Just crazy.
Just crazy.
this is actually about him being able to hold his own ground as a Prime Minister, and that New Zealanders deserve some clarity and his conviction on what he can see is happening and call it out. It is an illegal war. He should simply say that. Or he should instead say, I do not believe in upholding international law. One way or the other. Let's have some honesty and clarity.
But you can't just say it's, I mean, you don't know it's an illegal, I mean, you're not the International Criminal Court, you know what I mean?
You're not in charge.
Like, you can't say that. You can say
New Zealand,
it's a bit dodgy. You know, you might be able to be a bit more harder on it.
He hasn't even said that.
And then we go into about 45 seconds of them talking over each other and no one hearing anything, Chewy. And when we come back, he gives a chance for Seymour to sort of wrap up. And Seymour, of all people, wants to make sure that this is not time for grandstanding. People, there's no need for grandstanding. This is not the time.
Well, there's an important point. First of all, what's illegal is usually decided by courts.
We should remember all these notes, right? That means Seymour should never call anything illegal, right, from here on in until it's been decided by a court, because that's the standard he's setting for this.
And it's usually decided in full knowledge of the facts. These guys don't actually have that. It's not a time for political grandstanding and we are the world and we've got moral conviction. What we've actually said is in line with, and actually slightly, I guess, less, well, I mean, Australia and Canada have actually been supportive of the US actions, unlike us. What we've done is taken a measured and considered position based on who actually decides something is illegal and what facts do we know, rather than trying to politically grandstand. And by the way, the world is not waiting to hear what New Zealand thinks. What's important to New Zealand is, number one, the safety of New Zealanders, particularly the Irani community here, who are very worried about the reach of the regime. New Zealanders who are sheltering in place, and there's good advice on the MFAT website for those that are in the Middle East region. And as you've been discussing on our show, the rapid resumption of trade so that we don't see price spikes and ships full of New Zealand exports getting lost.
He's just trying to get word property rights in there for some reason.
At home. Those are the things that we're focused on.
Somebody think
No
about
doubt,
exports.
over many decades, people will debate the legality or otherwise.
There you go. So that's the end of that show. I've got this clip. Well, it's not actually a clip. The story to show you about the misspeaking. He misspoke because I want to show you how he handled his next misspeaking, because they're all just saying, oh, you know, he apologized for it. 24 hours later, after the journalist pulled it out of him. But first of all, your response to any of the stuff you've just heard from, you know, Marama and a couple of door head nails? No.
Yeah, like Marama. She sounded like the adult in the room.
Yeah, totally.
Like this is what annoys me when people go, "Oh, the Greens will never be a serious political power. They'll never be a majority party because they're all so crazy and they do these things." Show me in that interview what wasn't reasonable.
Yeah.
What wasn't an acknowledgement of the actual real world. Whereas David Seymour's always trying to oversimplify something.
But he's not grandstanding. He's never going to grandstand.
No, not grandstanding. No, it's definitely not. He's just looking for a pithy comment. He's like the worst corner of Reddit stuffed into a suit and fucking parading around. Like, there has been zero acknowledgement about his comments around Air New Zealand, about just some of the things that they've had to deal with, right? They've had engine failures, they've had Boeing groundings, all of that sort of stuff, and the international situation. And it's like, why are we talking about this now? Oh, they've had a bad year. Okay, so what happens when they have a good year? Like, and the government makes money.
Yeah.
Like, it's a long-term asset. It is, as Marama said, a strategic asset.
Yeah.
And his idea of like, oh, they're experimenting with hydrogen and alternative fuels and woke electric planes. That's fucking planning, man. That's just seeing if it will work. You know, you test these things. But no, we should just keep using standard jet fuel until it runs out, and then we'll fucking panic, and then it'll be all fine. We'll work it out later. What a dumbass.
They were talking about Luxon misspeaking, right? And this is what I want to highlight to you. There's no video for it, but it's on One News. In question time yesterday, should I show the article as well? I guess there's not much you need to do, but we might as well. In question time yesterday, Chloe Swarbrick asked Luxon if the government would commit to automatically extending visas for people who are in New Zealand now, whose home countries have been affected by the war as it happened in the context of the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Luxon responded saying, I understand that we are doing that, and the Minister of Immigration will continue to take advice on that too. That was in contradiction to what his Immigration Minister, Erica Stanford, had said earlier that day when she advised anyone that might be affected by the conflict to contact Immigration New Zealand. If they contact Immigration, we will be really pragmatic about making sure that they remain legally in New Zealand. She said it would be considered on a case-by-case basis, and the current visa that may be expiring could be extended. Swarbrick said on Wednesday the Prime Minister had effectively said a blanket extension was happening when, quote, we know it wasn't happening, right? So he's made a mistake. He has misspoken. Did he wait 24 hours for a reporter to pull it out of him or for Chloe to bring it up again? So the Prime Minister snuck into the House at 9:02 p.m., I believe late last night, to correct the record and say that there was a case-by-case process, which we all already knew available to those people. At 9:03 p.m. last night, Luxon sought leave to make a personal explanation. To be perfectly clear, what I would say to you is return on investment, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. But the reason I wanted to show that is that just gives more weight to this other one not being a misspoken segment. As we said, he said it on Hoskins, no pushback. He said it several more times in his press stander 24 hours later when pressed by, I think it was Jenna from TV3. Is it Jenna? Jenna Lynch? Yep. That's when he went, well, I misspoke. That time, he snuck back in himself and he sorted it out straight away. It just, to me, makes it kind of go, so you do know how to correct the record quickly. You were choosing not to correct the other record for a good period of time. Why is that? Is it because it wasn't you misspeaking? It was actually what you thought on that day. Chewy?
Oh, this is just spectacular. Luxon's having a nightmare run at the moment, and it sustains me. But look, he's got to walk a tightrope at the moment. He's got to walk a tightrope and being generally bumbling, unlikable, inauthentic, incompetent, but not too much where someone tries to roll him. We need him there till election day.
We as in us?
The people of New Zealand need Christopher Luxon to be just generally shitty at his job so he loses the election. Like,
I still there was some conversation
last night.
No, but there was some conversation I don't know if it's involving Bomber today about still Luxon getting rolled in the next sort of time period. I don't think it's going to happen. But no, tell me about Bomber show.
Oh, he had Matthew Hooton on again.
I think they're boyfriend and boyfriend by now. I think that's
just
official.
Basically gave him a platform to fucking slam Luxon for a good 10 minutes. It was glorious. I know Hooton's not to be trusted. He's not on our side. But holy hell, his dislike for Luxon and everything that he stands for, has done, will go on to do in the future is toxic. Like in a good way. I like how toxic it is. But yeah, his whole thing is like National do not have a hope of winning this election with Luxon at the wheel. I don't know
interesting.
How realistic that's going to be, but certainly if you check out last night's Bradbury group, for Hooton's comments, it's pretty full on.
We look, it's I guess it's the way of the world at the moment. There's lots of stuff we haven't covered this week. We never went back to Gary Stevenson on Q&A. You know, we haven't covered off what you're talking about. I would normally have a look at Bomber's show the day after to see if there's anything, for obvious reasons, right? It's also a testament to the fact that as much as I'm sure you guys would love it, we're not going to do a 4-hour show every night. We've just chosen not to. 3.5, fine, but we're not going to do a 4-hour show every single night. Let's get to some super chats, and then I've got some very bizarre stuff around Winston Peters to show you. Pete says 21st century version of trains running on time. That's the flying land and be on time. Thank you, Peter, for your super chat. Thank you, Study Boy, as well. If Air New Zealand was a business, Auckland, Queenstown, and maybe Rotorua, 2 biggest tourist spots plus biggest city, that would be bad for New Zealand. Yeah, fair about Queenstown and Rotorua as well. I think they could probably be in there. But you know what I'm saying? Is anyone going to Hokitika? Greymouth? Are they getting flights? No. No, not going to happen. And if it did go into Rotorua, then wouldn't go into Queenstown. It wouldn't do both. I mean, sorry. It wouldn't go into Tauranga if it was going into.
Now this is the perfect example for like Seymour poo-pooing Air New Zealand testing an electric plane.
Yeah.
Like if you look at that plane, that is a short haul, low passenger number hopper, basically. Absolutely perfect for those low margin, link flights. This is the thing that's going to go from Wellington to Nelson, or Timaru to Christchurch, or those sort of things. Dunedin to Invercargill, short hops. But it makes the potential for it to make those runs economical.
Yeah.
And that's what they're testing.
And actually,
It's
from a
smart.
business point of view, it's a good idea. And he's talking about, don't you? I mean, we should be on time. And it's actually, if it was a business, I mean, there was that business at the while talking about that plane that was going to take off and land in water. Remember that one that was around for a while?
Yeah.
Business plan, business model. Don't know what's happening with that, but there you go. Over Red Rover says, if it's not illegal if you don't get caught, not caught. So there you go. So if you commit a horrific crime, like Seymour won't call it illegal until it goes through the criminal process. I feel that could be pretty easily tested if we looked at the back catalogue of what Seymour has said. Where's our ROI of David? We can't get rid of him, says Arvid. Ian says Luxon is Boris-esque. And finally, Jal, send Luxon a mug that says world's best dud. All right. Hey, the Minister of Foreign Affairs has spoken. And I'm going to show you this strange footage. This is not the interview where he spoke.
He's got his tie on.
This is the interview where he spoke. What's the framing? This is not the interview where he spoke. I don't quite understand this, but actually, I'm wondering if, you know how I've said to you before, how when they're in a scrum and journalists, 3 or 4 journalists might ask basically the same question because they want the right cut for their product. I'm wondering if this is both TVNZ wanting to get some commentary from Winston that they can put into print so they don't care about the footage, or actually that's what I think it probably is, or it's just a warm-up. But then what happens is it gets put on the Stuff website. Oh, of course, no, this is not TVNZ. I thought it was a TVNZ. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that whole thing that I just said was wrong. Maybe this is for Stuff, but it's really bizarre. Like, see if you can figure it out. Let's play it.
The Prime Minister has admitted that he has misspoken. Did you have any communications with the Prime Minister after his press?
It actually sounds like Brodie Kane. Brodie Kane is for Stuff. She does kind of a chill thing, but I'm perplexed by this conversation, and some of the stuff that Winston says is quite disparaging of the Prime Minister.
Did you have any communications with the Prime Minister after his press conference on Monday?
No, but I would say this to you. Why do you call the Foreign Affairs Minister? Then no one would have misspoken, would they? Why did you and your journalistic colleagues call the Foreign Affairs Minister the person who's in charge of these issues and saved all the agony of misunderstanding?
Did it concern you when you heard what he had said?
By the time I had heard it was out in the ether for too many hours because I was on a plane. And we were out of communications, you see.
How concerning is it that the Prime Minister is misspeaking on foreign affairs?
Look, again, this is not a matter of that. It's a storm in a teacup, really. This is, you know what it looks like. It's the mainstream media and our political opponents having a got you moment.
I just wanted to highlight one thing. He can't say gotcha. I remember this from the last cycle, a got you moment. Like, he can't say gotcha. I don't know why this guy can't figure out it's gotcha. It's always a got you moment. Have a listen again.
It's a storm in a...
Sorry.
I was going to say just a very small point as well. I keep on mentioning the fact that he's flown to Argentina to see that idiot that's running that country. For him to say he was on a plane so out of contact is rubbish. because he was flying on an Air Force plane.
Right.
He would have been in full comms the whole time.
Gotcha.
So, lies.
Right. So listen to this. Got you. Gotcha. It's a gotcha moment. Got you.
Teacup, really. This is, you know what it looks like. It's the mainstream media and our political opponents having a got you moment.
Well, it was a pretty.
Let me tell you, when it comes to New Zealand First and Winston Peters, you're going to have a bad time trying to get a got you moment.
Should it have taken the Prime Minister a day to correct that statement?
Well, if you look at it chronologically, the next day was having the same meeting we had arose on the first day. So that's likely to be a 24-hour gap, yes.
All right. Foreign Minister Winston Peters, thank you so much.
I hope they're running this stuff on TV tonight.
We're running that, absolutely.
Your listeners, your viewers deserve better than this.
No, that's interesting.
Like, just bizarre, a bizarre conversation. So now I'm going to retract everything I said. That was obviously for Stuff and for TV3. That's what that was. And I think it probably was Brodie Kane. But it was just weird overall. Anyway, you want to say anything before we go to TVNZ? Because this TVNZ story now is going to flow into the story about potentially ministers putting their thumb on the scale. And Chris Chang gets Winston to shut up. It's really interesting. He does really well.
I want to see that.
At the end of it, because Winston wants to go off on a tirade about TVNZ. And interestingly enough, that then ties into, of course, this controversy around TVNZ. But Chris Chang, he's like, nope. And Winston stops talking. That's at the end of the clip, though. So let's get to the start of the clip to start off with. Right. So Winston on breakfast this morning being asked about, the Prime Minister misspeaking. See, it's either not a big deal and we are making a huge thing of it, or it is a big deal and his coalition partners are turning it down. Wake up, Winston. Wake up. So I think it is. I don't think it's a big deal, like world shattering, but it is indicative of a poor leader, and we don't want a poor leader running our country. That's what it is. So they're talking again about the misspeaking on breakfast this morning.
The Prime Minister yesterday said he misspoke when he was talking about New Zealand supporting any action to stop Iran's efforts to obtain nuclear weapons. I'm just wondering if you can clarify this for us and maybe provide a bit of guidance as to what New Zealand's position is here, whether it has supported the actions here.
Look, there will be all sorts of far more qualified legal experts in the future deciding.
So what these guys are doing, and Seymour did it, this is the talking point. We don't know if it's illegal. Someone in the future will tell us. Seymour said it. We heard that conversation with Marama. Winston saying it. They're both saying nobody knows today whether it was illegal or not. The future will look back on it and tell us, which is horseshit, but it seems to me to be an obvious talking point that this government has agreed to, because there's more than one leader of the coalition government using this point.
This issue at this very time, on this particular occasion of Iran, after 47 years of terrorism accentuated in the last few decades, terrorism all over the world. And so the real point becomes, when do you have to take action? And
when do you start the war? When do you bomb them? Is that what we're asking?
When you talk about the rule of law, which all of these critics emphasize.
Don't. How dare you emphasize the rule of law? Why are you evoking the rule of law? Don't do that.
As in the streets of Auckland.
Yep.
How many countries has Iran bombed?
When I looked at it yesterday, it was 20 years. Iran. I don't know. Got no idea. But I know that there's been 10 impacted in the last few days.
That's one of the things that Winston said, right? Is that, like, they've been doing terrorism increasingly in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss that?
I think what they're doing is they're talking about the biggest funder of state-sanctioned terrorism, so they're probably linking that in.
Oh.
That would be my guess.
But are they?
Well,
are they the biggest?
That's what we're
funder
always
of
told.
State-sanctioned terrorism?
We're told
Are
that.
they?
We're told that. I don't know. We're told that. Let's keep going.
Don't know if that's true.
Internationally will only work.
Also, probably depends what you classify as terrorism. You know, like Christmas Day bombs, was it in Nigeria? Is that terrorism? What's a terrorism?
If it's enforced You get the point here? And so there'll be a judgment in time as to whether these actions were right or wrong. But the actions of the Iranian regime in decades of terrorism in all parts of the world have been just appalling. And as to how we judge this government of Iran, unlike other governments that have a certain sort of international foreign policy setting, these are a bunch of religious fanatics and religious extremists.
He's talking about America,
Are we talking?
right? Yeah.
We're still talking about Iran, are we?
No. It's religious
Because it's
extremism
getting
fundamentalists.
increasingly muddied, isn't it?
Talking about America and their holy war.
There's a lot of military aid going out of one of our allies to various parts of that region, isn't there?
Yep.
There's lots of putting the thumb on social media. There's lots of billionaires funding right-wing organizations, political parties around the world, destabilizing Western democracy from one end to the other. Like, the waters are very muddy if you want to go down that track, Winston.
Yeah.
Because you can't just ignore that, because in the past these guys have been our friends. So we're going to give them a pass.
And just bouncing off the earlier conversation around, people within the US military saying that this is the end times war, Jesus is on our side. Trump is sent by Jesus to light a fire in Iran. So we've got to be careful with comments around religious fundamentalism there, Winston.
How we judge this government of Iran, unlike other governments that have a certain sort of international foreign policy setting, these are a bunch of religious fanatics and religious extremists. And so their dictum that controls them is nothing that the rest of us understand. And that's our difficulty. So all I've said as the Foreign Minister is, look, let us judge that there in some other future time. But at the moment right now, our job is to ensure that our people are safe and to get them out or get them sheltered as fast and as long as we can until the crisis is over, because the crisis will be over before too long.
Right. We have one more clip of Mr. Winston to play, him having a full-on meltdown over Helen Clark's comments. But first of all, any thoughts on that?
I want to see it. I want to see it.
So Winston Peters wants to make sure that anyone who used to be in politics, especially if you worked for the UN, you are not qualified to talk about this at all, and you should shut up. I think he actually does say shut up to Helen Clark in this part of the conversation. Let's have a listen.
You were talking about the wanting to wait for advice from legal minds that are more qualified to talk about the legality of whether this strike.
I'll tell you why I've heard all sorts of people proselytising, making all sorts of statements. Two former leaders of the Labour Party, trampling all over the present leader of the Labour Party as though he knows nothing. You see what I mean? If he was the spokesman for the Labour Party, why isn't that good enough? No, the two previous ones are banging on with my greatest respect.
Because they're not spokespeople for the Labour Party. That's why he is the spokesperson for the Labour Party and the other ones aren't. They're speaking either as their individual self, or, for example, Helen Clark was as a person speaking on behalf of this group, the elders. So that's the difference, because they're not speaking on behalf of Labour. They're different.
The last time they got a briefing on this matter was decades ago. The world has changed and they should change with it.
Are you saying that former Prime Minister Helen Clark is not in a position to be commenting on this?
She never was in a position. She was the one that said just over 20 years ago that we lived in a benign geostrategic environment. It wasn't true then. She was saying it very shortly after. 88 people lost their lives in, dare I say, Argentina, in a terrorist attack sponsored by Iran at that point in time in Buenos Aires. Do people forget that? She was making those statements then when they weren't appropriate, and they're more less appropriate now. And I wish she would leave it to the present Labour Party and somebody who's getting current briefings, as Crip Hiskins is, rather than crapping all over him all the time.
What about the fact that she actually...
Rather than crapping all over him all the time.
Worked closely within the UN. Would that not qualify to have a good understanding and a good read on this?
No, it does not qualify. In that bloated bureaucracy that is now being called to account, where they've got serious troubles because the funding is not coming anymore because too many countries are saying, get back to your original reason for existence, get back to your original charter. All this bloatedness was happening in Helen Clark's time, and the world's had enough of that. And so now they're getting back the United Nations to what they used to stand for, and it'll be a better organization. But my point really is, I don't know whether it's attention deficit syndrome, but why are you carrying Helen Clark's comments? Do you see what's there when it goes on the social media, what the reach is? The reach is minimalistic. And yet you guys are giving him more currency than the leader of the Labour Party right now. Now, if I was Hipkins, I'd be rather upset about that. But more importantly, if I was Hipkins, I'd do something about it.
Right. There's old man shouts at clouds. Yeah. I will play.
Got
I will
some
play
sand
you.
under his foreskin.
I will
Makes
play
him
you.
grumpy.
I will play you the Chris Chang shutdown in a second. But yeah, thoughts. He does sound like, we've talked about this before. He is an old man who sounds like an old man. I mean, many people his age you won't trust with a television remote, but Minister of Foreign Affairs, Joey.
I want to see the man try and park a car in a busy packet safe. That's how we gauge it. And like I said, I've got a test ready to go. Here's your phone, Mr. Peters. Please open the PDF that's in the email I just sent you. If he can't do it, then he needs to be put in a home.
I'm just taking a screen grab because that's quite a good screen grab for a thumbnail. I just literally took a screen grab right then because that there is quite a good screen grab for a thumbnail. I was still listening to you, Joey. I was just multitasking.
Can we have put some words on it? Like, what time is my rice pudding arriving, please?
I tell you what, I think I've done one of the world's best thumbnails yesterday. I actually opened it up, but this is complete tangent already. I'll show it to you. It's one of my favorite ones. One of my favorite ones I've done for a very long time. For some reason, I found an image of Mr. Luxon looking particularly goofy. And so I talked about Chris Hipkins being a statesman, and this is the thumbnail.
Hello.
Hello. and I've saved that as a PNG. So every now and again you might just see it.
Just
pop back up.
Just get him popping in, just seeing how things are going.
Might get him to pop back in.
Good stuff. Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
I fucked the country.
That's the right voice too. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, sorry, tangent.
Airline.
Yeah, I fired everybody, and I ran it like a business and shut down all the small routes. Hello. That's what he did. Right, Winston now, and this is relevant because we're going to talk about TVNZ next before we wrap up for the night. Winston starts to go off on a tirade about TVNZ, and Chris Chang stops him, and Winston stops. It's quite interesting. I don't know if it's not like he smoked him, but I'll just play it for you. And it was a really good response from Chris Chang, and I wonder if other reporters should learn a thing or two.
All right. Where are we at the moment with
I'll be talking to the broadcasting guys that the taxpayer pays for and ask them what's going on.
Oh, no. Mr. Peters, come on. We almost made it through an entire interview without even having to drag that tired old false trope out. I would have expected a little bit better there.
Sorry.
Not taxpayer funded. You and I both well know, Mr. Peters, and I think it's important not for the viewers to get distracted by that sort of thing, and we stay on this important issue at the moment with Iran. Where are we at in terms of advice to anyone else that cannot get out at the moment, and they do need to hunker down? What is the line for those countries that are around Iran, for instance, for people like Dubai at the moment after the developments?
Look, you're asking a fair question. But let me tell you, this far out and this far away,
and timid as a mouse. Interesting, eh?
I have never seen that.
I know.
Holy shit!
I know.
And it was just like, hello. Just that. Come on, Winston.
We're not doing this tonight.
We
Winston.
know that's not true. Come on. Maybe that's how you Winston Whisper.
Well, you know, if you want to get one, you want Trump on your side, you give him something shiny like a fucking magpie. Maybe you treat Winston like he is 90. Come on, little fella. We're not doing that today. No, we'll do that tomorrow.
No,
we'll talk naughty noughts tomorrow. We're not doing it
the
today.
communists are gone now.
Yeah.
Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. It's different now.
But the conversation around that he wanted to start up, it's particularly interesting. I don't know if he was connected to the conversation about TVNZ and the government, but let's have a look at it. Because if he wasn't, I mean, I guess Winston always brings up TVNZ and calls them shills and stuff, so maybe it was going to be a part of it. But this conversation came out tonight. It was broken by, I'm pretty sure broken by Shane Curry at the New Zealand Herald, and I've noticed that One News and now has it on their website, as does Stuff. Media Insider 6 p.m. news story, fallout. TVNZ board chair Andrew Barclay's phone call with Broadcast Minister Paul Goldsmith. I'll read some of this. The One News at 6 story on rising gang members last Thursday incensed Goldsmith, who was also Justice Minister and Police Minister Mark Mitchell, because it came on the same day as the government's announced a dramatic drop in violent crime victims. Mitchell described TVNZ's editorial decision-making that evening as absolutely unbelievable. On a day that the government announces 49,000 fewer victims of violent crime and a 22% decrease in serious repeat youth offending, One News chose to engage in unbalanced journalism by running a story about gang membership, he wrote on Facebook. He's not happy. Now, there is law that ministers are not allowed to comment on, are not allowed to persuade TVNZ, the public broadcaster, on what to broadcast. They're not allowed to do it, right? I'm going to read you a few things from the story, then we're going to have a look at a couple of things. Mitchell revealed to Matt Heath and Tyler Adams on the News Talk ZB afternoon show on Friday afternoon that he had received a call from TVNZ after the story and received an apology. ZB's Barry Soper later reported that Mitchell had received an apology from a senior leader. Media Insider understands this was TVNZ political editor Mikey Sherman. The TVNZ story by senior political reporter Benedict Collins has sparked at least 4 conversations between politicians and TVNZ. Goldsmith also raised it with Collins and Sherman that evening. On Wednesday evening, One News at 6 broadcast a second story highlighting the drop in government crime figures, leading now to questions about whether that had arisen as a result of any political and or board level interference. A TVNZ spokeswoman confirmed to the Herald that Sherman contacted Mitchell's office the morning after the One News gang story to advise the victim of crime data should have been included. Now, there's a couple of things when there's this cool feature on your phone, you can listen to them. So I'll read it to you. It's wicked, actually. It's good for me. Is that TVNZ has editorial independence. Even if their editorial choices are poor, they still have editorial independence. Ministers in the government should be putting no weight on any scale to get them to put what they want on. Now, there's 2 things here, though. There is an accusation, I guess, be it implicit or not, that TVNZ is showing bias by not showing the feature story of the news cycle that day. That may or may not be correct, but even if that is correct, then there'll be a process to go through to figure that out, not ministers speaking to the board or board members speaking to ministers or people speaking to the news and getting them to run the other story anyway. Let me make clear that explicit accusation has not been made, but it is interesting that after a communication between Mitchell and Goldsmith and Mikey Sherman and TVNZ being unhappy about a story on one night, the next night it ran. Now, I've said now a lot. It may have been running anyway because Mikey Sherman said that story should have run. So they may have had it in the can to run anyway, but it does create a little bit of greyness. I've got more to show, Chewy, but your thoughts first.
I don't like this at all. Like the head of TVNZ is a national appointee. formerly of Goldman Sachs. And I just think, yeah, that distance that TVNZ needs to have from the government, it's everything that people whinged about during COVID, right?
Yeah.
That the Labour government were funding them, and of course they were a mouthpiece for Labour and what Jacinda wanted to do. But here we have actual fucking back channel. Oh, so we're sorry. The story wasn't good for the government, Massa. We'll run another story. Like it's just weird. I do not like it. It's not a good look.
You bring up a really interesting point about the COVID period, because during the COVID period and the Public Interest Journalism Fund, there was lots of accusations of the appearance of bias. Right, so there wasn't even accusations by people of bias, but there was accusations by people of the appearance of bias. Having the ministers talking with TVNZ, that could, or that does, put out the appearance of putting your thumb on the scale. There was a young politician prior to the last election who basically informed us that, and this was specifically to do with broadcasting, so it's almost apples for apples, and TVNZ, who gave us a pretty clear indication what he then thought about the appearance or the reality of putting the thumb on the scale or bias. He said this.
Well, for the very reason that it actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrongly. I just say to you, that's the perception. Whether that's real or not doesn't really matter.
Whether the perception is real or not doesn't matter. So let's apples with apples. If the perception of conversations between Goldsmith, Mitchell and TVNZ that they have influenced editorial is real or not, according to Mr. Luxon pre-election, doesn't matter. It's basically as bad as whether it is or isn't. Now, on top of all of that, Chewie, I want to put forward, I want to submit to the court some fine young broadcasters who actually picked up on this the night of. There are some fine young broadcasters who were talking about the TVNZ story, and it was weird how they were leading with the gang numbers and not the decrease in crime. Shall I play you a little bit from these fine young broadcasters the night of?
Bright futures ahead.
And interesting, there was a press conference held today that I watched with Christopher Luxon talking about the fewer violent crime incidents, down 49,000. So they did a press conference and they sold it as a good news story, and look at the success we've got, and this is going well. TVNZ led with gang numbers outweigh police numbers now, which is also true. So interesting to see that the angle that TVNZ took on that. I think most interesting, these young broadcasters picked up on that well before anybody else did. In fact, they picked up on it a couple of times during that show. All right. There was a press conference held by Luxon and Goldsmith and Mitchell, Mark Mitchell, today, talking about police and talking about statistics around crime, Justice Minister, Police Minister, Prime Minister. And it didn't go quite the way they hoped, because TVNZ's come out talking about how gang numbers are now officially outnumbering police officers, which is true, but is not the headline I'm guessing this government wanted to have out there. Mitchell was also asked about the 500 police, didn't really get much of an answer in the actual press conference. Let's have a look at what TV1 had to say tonight. Interesting, eh? A couple of young broadcasters picked up on that the night that it actually happened, and all of this conversation, right? All of this conversation around this government wanting to basically go, we should be highlighting this good news story about violent crime coming down, and we wrap it all up with last night's frickin' story, that the story they're talking about that they didn't get highlighted on the night they want is all bullshit.
Obviously, there are a range of measures. The one that has consistently been held as the strongest, clearest measure of crime in the community is the very broad survey that is done on crime and victim survey.
The Minister says this is the gold standard for assessing crime, yet it doesn't show violent crime surging under Labour. The total number bounced around, rising in Labour's last year and early in National's term, then falling sharply. Instead, the government relies on a different data set, police data on assaults, to show violent crimes surging under Labour.
So the story that Goldsmith got pissy about and that Mark Mitchell got pissy about was fabricated, was not true, was not honest. Because I told you this last night. TVNZ, it's interesting that TVNZ would also show this story last night after these things have been going on in the background. Just think about that this story comes out last night, that this government wanted to show this story on the night they released it. They wanted to show you from the New Zealand Police as the source, the increase in crime from the New Zealand Police under Labour, and then they wanted you to see the decrease in crime from the Ministry of Justice. That's the story they wanted to show. It's a fabrication. The numbers are fudged. The data sets are different. It is false advertising and fake news, actual fake news. And there's just a beautiful irony how TVNZ didn't do the, numbers have gone down. They did gang numbers. And then the next night, the appearances, the government put their thumb on the scale. They did the story. And then next week, Benedict Collins, same reporter, comes out going, hey, you know that story that TVNZ had to play last week that they got all pissy about? Yeah, well, it's all bullshit. They are fudging the numbers, Fano. I know he didn't quite say it as bluntly as that, but it's just sort of a beautiful full circle back to the WTF moment for this government. Chewy.
Let's have another graph from the Ministry of Justice, shall we?
Love it.
Ministry of Justice data, October 2025. New Zealand crime statistics comparing 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Violent offences, homicide, sexual...
But I'm confused. That would show numbers increasing under this government. That's not what. But that's not what we're being told, Joey.
Well, this is inconvenient. It must be disappeared then.
I wonder how they're going to. What graph are they going to put up to dispute this?
I mean, it's incontrovertible. The bigger bar is blue, so it's national.
Right. Yeah.
I love it when National just plays graph fuckery every time that there's an election year.
And you guys can get the answers by coming and seeing us Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Big Hero News and Bright Hero News on the Friday. All right, Chewy. I think there's one star chat there. Do we need to get to it? Are you? It's Arvid saying he can't say a lot of stuff. Rodeo. That's us. And reminder, I'm not in tomorrow night. You remember that, Chewy? You're away.
I remember that. You didn't think you were here tonight, so there's that.
Shut up. At least I decided to turn up. You already got here half an hour after we started. Like, it's pretty poor. That's pretty piss poor.
Before we take off, you know how our Discord community is undefeated, right?
Undefeated? Yeah, I'll go with that.
Undefeated. They're so quick. So quick off the trigger. Oh, it's the perfect screen grab of Seymour. Perfect. Well done.
Yep. This is correct. Tomorrow night. So, Chewy, you'll have to be on your best behaviour.
I won't be.
I guarantee you won't be.
Ungovernable.
And then of course Bright Hero News on Friday night. They'll be the guys will be with you as well through that. That's it for me, and reminder to you, if you are on those 4 levels that have a meetup this weekend, there is a meetup on Saturday at 10 a.m. different time, 10 a.m. rather than 11 because I've got some stuff to do at 11 a.m. And would love to see you there. Other than that, Chewy, I think we're just about done. Done diddly undies, I think. We're done? I think we're done. Are we done? I think we're done. Has anyone else noticed Pat always disappears during a full moon? Yeah, it's true, actually. I'm going to go and howl for a while. Howl at the moon. I don't think there's anything else to tell you. Nope. I think we're done.
Shut it down.
Yep. I'll see you fellas. I'll see some of you on Saturday morning. I'll see the rest of you on Monday night. Chewy and Ems will see you tomorrow night. And other than that, stay hairy, everybody, whatever the hell that means. Hey. Nothing else from me, Chewy. Anything else from you as we head off to our Wednesday night?
No, that's all from me. It's not ice time now.
All right, guys. Take it easy. We'll catch you Monday night. Chewy, we'll catch you tomorrow night. See some of you Saturday morning. Be safe, be well. And, if you see Luxon around town, say g'day from me. All right, team. All the best. Talk to you soon. Hooroo.
Cheers, man.